Okay. Good evening, Town of Port Royal. Thank you all for being here. We're going to call to order the February 8th council workshop. Thank you all for being here. Starting off, first thing on the agenda is a presentation from the town audit from Mrs. Lisa Weschler.
Hi.
Absolutely. Hey, how are you?
Hi, fine. Good evening. Okay, so just before the meeting, I passed out a hard copy of the report that we'll be going over. And I'm not sure if do you have it available to go? Yeah, up here on the monitor. Okay, so this presentation is for the audit of the financial statements for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. The financial statements contain two sections, your financial section, and for the first time in quite some time, you have a compliance section because your federal financial assistance and grants exceeded $750,000, the threshold for requiring a uniform guidance audit for federal awards. So included in the financial statements, you'll find in the financial section, the independent auditor's report, the management's discussion and analysis, basic financial statements, and then that includes your government-wide financial statements, which is on the full accrual basis of accounting. Your fund financial statements are on modified accrual, and then you also have notes to the financial statements, and then there's a section called required supplementary information, and the final section is supplementary information, which contains mostly your breakout of your non-major funds. And there's a schedule of fines, assessments, and surcharges, and then the compliance section includes what's called the SEFA, the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards, some notes to that schedule, and our reports on that. So to begin with, the independent auditor's report, page 1 through 3, states that we have taken the information we received from management, we've applied audit procedures to that information, and our opinion is not modified with those procedures. So it's a clean opinion of the financial statements. Page 4 begins the management's discussion and analysis, and basically this is about 6 or 7 pages discussing the financial statements and providing that information in more of a narrative format instead of just columns of numbers. On page 6, you'll see this is the government-wide statement of net position, or your balance sheet. So on this statement, you'll see total assets for 2023, the end of the fiscal year, $23,153,000. Your deferred outflows and deferred inflows both relate to the pension information that's received from PEBA from their audited financial statements. And then you have your total liabilities, $15,983,000. That nets to $7,912,000 at the end of June. So that's full accrual, includes all your capital assets and all your long-term debt. On page 7, this is your summarized statement of net position for your activities during the year. So total expenses, $10,895,000. That's what it costs to provide services to your citizens. Your program revenues of $2,346,000. And then general revenues of $9,195,000 nets to an increase of $644,000. On page 9, this is a snapshot of those capital assets net of depreciation. So you can see exactly what category it's included there. The $7,154,000, those are net of depreciation. During the year, about $1.2 million was added to capital assets. That included sidewalk improvements, some pavement projects, some drainage, vehicles, and some other equipment that was purchased by the town. And right below that, you have, oh, let me mention this one thing. You'll see subscription assets and subscription liabilities. That's the new standard for GASB 96, where you have to record the right to use software that's on a long-term arrangement. Long-term obligations, right below there, $8,035,000. During the year, a bond for $3 million was issued, and you'll see that as an increase in your capital assets fund statement, because most of that money was still on hand at the end of the year. There's lease liabilities of $517,000, subscription liabilities of $45,000. The pension liability that is from the PIBA actuarially determined balance at June 30th, $4.5 million, and the compensated absences on employees of $216,000. This is leave that has accrued but not taken. Okay, then on pages 11, this is the statement of net position, and it's just broken out, but we just went over the totals there. But that tells you what's included in those totals. Page 12 is the statement of activities for the net position, and basically the detail there behind those figures. On page 13, this is when you get to your fund financial statement. So we're presenting your general fund as a major fund and capital projects as a major fund. So at the end of June 30th, your fund balance and your general fund, right below there you'll see, just go up a little bit, $3,744,000 at the end of June. That number went up, actually it went down $305,000. There was a decrease this year. Your capital projects funds, remember I said the $3 million loan was taken out. That $2.6 million is, basically that increase that's reflected there. And then the other governmental funds, you have a fund balance of $1,476,000. Those are broken out in the supplemental information section for each one of those funds. Total fund balance is $7,893,000. On page 15, here's your income statements. General fund activities, $8,693,000 with expenses of $9,579,000, a decrease of $305,000. Capital projects, $1,393,000 included there, expenses of $1,962,000. Then you had the bond proceeds and some lease and subscription proceeds for $3,241,000, so an increase in that fund of $2,672,000. And then the other governmental funds, if you go down just a little bit, 400 and a little bit more, $456,000 increase there. And most of that was the TIF district funds. Okay, so if you go back to page 39, this is the budget comparisons for the general fund. So you had approved budget of $8,059,000 general funds. What was received was $8,693,000. So that was $634,000 more than what was budgeted. And you can see that the tax came in a little bit under budget, even though overall tax revenues were higher than the previous year. So I think the previous year was like $3.7 million, and this year you have $4.1 million in just the general funds. Your fines, fees, and licenses, you collected $516,000 more, intergovernmental $13,000, and the miscellaneous revenues were about $264,000. So you might be wondering, well, what was that $500,000? Okay, I knew you were going to ask that. Business license, $650,000 increase there. You received the sanitation department, as you know, was changed mid-year, I think it was, January. So there was about $170,000 in revenue that wasn't received that was originally budgeted. some capacity fees of $65,000. So most of it, though, was business license, $650,000 more.
An increase in business license?
Yes, sir.
Significantly.
And
good.
the miscellaneous, the reason that is up is interest. So when you have inflation, you have interest, you pay more, and banks pay you more sometimes. That was up about $180,000 interest. Okay, so expenditures, $8,639,000 was budgeted, $9,579,000 spent, for a variance of $940,000. Some of the big changes there, big differences there was, the sewer extension, in, executive, $450,000 was spent out of there between engineering and other costs. There was some shrimp dock expenses there, $77,000, and special contracts of $70,000 was more than budgeted. The other one was fire department, $185,000. There was a purchase or a payment for a truck, $185,000. That was the difference there in the budget. And then in the safety and building services, $132,000. Most of that variance was due to the shed, some roof expenses and other costs associated with that. So when you take the positive variance of the 634 minus the 940, you have the decrease of the 305 compared to budget. On pages 42 and 43, this is the supplemental information that I was talking about earlier. So in that one column that's labeled other governmental funds, these are your non-major funds that are presented together as one figure. Included there is your stormwater, your local hospitality, local accommodations, your state accommodations, your housing rehab, TIF, and the shrimp dock expenses there. So those are all included in the aggregate totals in the fund financials, the basic financials. On page 43, you have your profit and loss from those funds, and you can see down at the bottom there, the increase of $456,000 of that amount, $350 was in the TIF fund. So those were funds received, but there were no expenses out of that fund. There was also an increase of the local hospitality of $150. So those two funds accounted for that increase. One thing that I guess I have been working with Van on is the assessed valuation that we received from the auditor's office this year was not comparable at all to the previous year's figures that we received, but as you know, we've had a change in the auditor this year. We're hoping there's just some misinformation there. I am still trying to work with Beaufort County Finance Department to try to get to the bottom of it. But the assessed valuation went from what was reported last year of about $60 million to 56.
So somehow Port Royal went down in value.
Right.
Yeah, and more than half of it was from vehicles.
45% of our vehicle tax revenue vanished.
That doesn't sound right.
Absolutely.
That doesn't pass the smell test. No,
And your
that's-
tax revenues are up. So
Right.
it's not,
Right.
So, yeah, I've been keeping up with that conversation y'all are having. You feel pretty confident that's just some sort of calculation error or something they'll get figured out?
I hope it will get figured out, yes.
We went through this about 8 or 9 years ago where we had town employees that were living in picket fences that obviously are town residents. Were not paying municipal property taxes on vehicles. And it took an extensive effort to get them to correct that. leave it there.
Gotcha.
Yeah. That zip code will kill you every time.
Well, absolutely, and I tried to explain that to finance because they're all new people and they can't understand why the name of the city over there is Beaufort, okay? And I explained the post office situation, that was all previously serviced by the Beaufort Post Office. So the post office refused to change the address when that was annexed into the town many years ago. But, you know, you have a lot of apartments over there, and I don't see how they could just change the district on existing vehicles, but you may have people who have moved out, and those new people who came in, you know, when they went in there to register their vehicles and they said Beaufort, they automatically put them in the wrong, you know, tax district possibly. You know,
Yeah.
maybe, but then that might require extensive
Right.
research to get to the bottom of that.
And, you know, we did reach out to the Postal Service, asked them to address that, and they never responded. We did a couple letters to them.
It's a lot of money.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I have a 29902 zip code, but they tell me my post office is in Burton, the 29906 area, so it's just
It's messed up.
confusing, you know, to everybody. So I can see how if you had a lot of people moving out of the area and new people moving in, it's possible they were put in the wrong district. But there are a lot of new personnel at the county in the past year,
Okay.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's the only concern I had is that, you know, that number in this report, I feel like it's low.
So overall, do you feel like we have a good budget, other than this one issue that we're gonna work on and figure out why we have that deficit there? But overall, the budget was good.
Yes, overall. And I have to say that, you know, this issue with the assessed valuation is also complicated by the reassessment year, okay? Because we're not comparing, you know, the same information from one year to the next, but that year should have been comparable to the previous year. Now, coming up in '24, it's not. And then, of course, always after a reassessment year, your numbers do drop a little.
Because people
Or they
go
don't
in-
go up as high.
Yeah, people go in and,
Yeah, Act 388 is the cap, the increase at 50%. If you would have had a $100,000 house and it increased in value to $200,000 per the assessor, the only additional value you could collect from it is capped at 15%. So it would be valued for taxation at $115,000, not $200,000.
So that just complicates things a little bit, you know, never a dull moment, right, in the world of government, right? Right.
No, this time, I just need
Okay. Bill, thank you for that. I'll ask you, I mean,
Okay.
outside of this issue, do you see any other concerns, any other things
No,
we should
we
be
did not.
working on, storms on the horizon or anything, or outside of this evaluation issue that we're working with the county on?
No,
Okay.
just, you know, continue.
to. Town's in pretty good shape.
Yes,
Yeah.
pretty good shape, yes.
Good.
Great.
that's the most important.
It's kind of, I see that, as I kind of went back to the early, it's the first time in a long time, we haven't spent a lot of money on the shrimp docking that I can remember in a long time.
That's right, exactly, because it's usually been closer to 250 or
250,
higher.
Right.
Yeah,
300.
But hopefully,
And
you
we
know,
sectored it out that way so we could better track these expenses associated with the enterprise fund. And obviously, the expenditures for that particular year were the demolition costs that were significant. It was about $115,000, combined with the legal fees we spent to remove the remaining
Right.
votes. And obviously, there's no revenue coming in,
right.
so there's no product moving
Didn't
across
watch
the
it,
dock.
yeah.
Yeah.
not yet, right.
But hopefully, we get things
I think we got
permitted and moved
what we
forward and
did,
built, and
$500 for the one shrimp boat?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it.
so hopefully we'll change that here in the next couple of years with the new
Yeah.
shrimp dock and
Yeah.
bringing that, getting that online.
Right.
So, well, that's exciting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Well,
very
thank
much,
you all.
absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good
Appreciate
evening.
you.
All right, next we have another presentation, the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust, Mr. Dana Topman. This is Dixie Lanier, our
Yes.
representative on that as well. And
Hi, yes, thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm really excited to be here this evening and introduce you guys to Dana Tootman. He's our interim director, executive director. He hails from the great state of Maine. In Maine, he served in a role for 22 years and has a ton of affordable housing experience. In Maine, he also helped to create a statewide housing, affordable housing bond. Several bonds, actually, and he was also integral in the development of the Maine Affordable Housing Coalition. He's only with us part-time, and he does so much as we seek a full-time director, and he's only serving with us until May, but over the last year, he's been an extremely knowledgeable and huge asset, so please help us welcome Dana.
Good evening. Thanks, Dixie.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm pleased to be here and to share what we're working on. I think I'll just sort of jump right into a quick presentation here. But before I do that, I want to remind you that the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust was the creation of 5 towns, 1 city, and 2 counties who came together and signed an intergovernmental agreement. And in that agreement, you collectively, you're one of the 5, pledged about $7.5 million over the next 10 years to this fund to work on affordable housing. So that's the background. That all happened around 13 months ago. And so I'll try to fill in a little bit of the blanks between then and now, but more importantly, where I think we're going. The mission of our organization is pretty simple. It's to create and preserve the affordable housing in Beaufort and Jasper counties. And you all spelled that out in that intergovernmental agreement. Before I get into talking about what we're doing, I wanted to share, and I think this is what I'm doing, I want to share it with you, is to try to get my head around what is the affordable housing problem. And so the more we know about the problem, the more we know about who needs affordable housing, the better we'll be at addressing that problem. So I'm going to share some data here. Some of this you probably know. A couple, I think, Ben, you've seen it before, so I apologize. But in these 2 counties, there are 84,000 households, and you can see about a quarter are rental households, and the 3/4 are owner-occupied housing, 74%. They're in the blue. Looking a little more closely, what we find here, and we don't oftentimes look at this as closely as I think we should, but the rental households earn a whole lot less money than those that own their home. The median income of households overall is $68,000. Owners, the median income is $78,000. And renters are much lower incomes at about $47,000. So there's a lot of different definitions and interpretations and connotations to affordable housing, but to put it simply, it really means when your housing costs are no more than 30% of your income. And that's what banks use when they calculate what you're eligible for a mortgage. It's what HUD uses in their various programs. And so it's the widely accepted definition that for housing to be affordable, you should be paying no more, your household should be paying no more than 30% of your income toward that housing. We wish that was the case, and if everybody was like that, I wouldn't be here. Here you can see that in the homeowners category, this is just homeowners, there are roughly 15,000, or about a quarter of the households are paying more than 30%. And in fact, of those that are paying more than 30%, almost half of them, 11 of the 25%, are paying more than half their income toward their housing cost. Clearly, that's a problem. It's not sustainable, and it's worthy of note. But to go quickly forward to look at those renters, keep in mind they were much lower income to begin with. Almost half of all the rental households in Beaufort and Jasper counties are what we consider cost burdened. And half of that half are extremely cost burdened, spending more than half their income toward housing. So again, a quarter of those rental households are spending more than half of their income on housing. This is important, and the reason it's a widely accepted number is if you're spending more than you should, more than 30%, more than 50% of your income on housing, it doesn't leave you enough to pay your other bills. You don't have enough left over to pay for food, clothing, health care, et cetera. So that's why we really focus in on this number. This probably won't surprise you, but this is, again, I think, of the owner households. Those that have the affordability challenges are the lowest income. So those at the 0 to 60% of median income, you can see there, 8,911, are most frequently comprising that house burden group. A little bit higher income, 60 to 80% of median, far less, 80 to 100% is only 1,400. And there are 3,000 still that make over the median income that are still have an affordability challenge. Keep in mind that 3,000 is of a very big number. There's probably 50, 60,000 people overall that are over in that category. So large number, maybe a third of the area's population have a housing challenge. So that's what our organization is tasked with, to try to address that. And so I'll share a little bit now on what we're doing, but I want to provide a little bit of history of where the organization has come. The first part of last year, there was an agreement that was contemplated in that intergovernmental agreement that the contract would be entered into with a nonprofit in Greenville called Community Works, who would provide administrative support. And they did that for the most of 2023. However, as time it was also contemplated in that agreement that the Beaufort Jasper Housing Trust would probably incorporate and become its own entity and would not need the services of that Community Works organization long term. So that happened fairly quickly. In May, the organization became a 501c3 private nonprofit organization. So it became its own organization in May. And by the time September and October came around, it was becoming clearer to both Community Works that for them in Greenville to be providing the sort of on-the-ground administrative support here in the two counties wasn't working very well. And I think for the board members, there was a similar conclusion that this arrangement, despite people's best efforts, wasn't perfect. And perhaps now that we're a 501c3, we should do exactly as was contemplated and have our own staff. So when I came here about a year ago, or was visiting here a year ago, picked up a newspaper and had read about the creation of this housing trust, and I'd retired a year before, or a few months before at that point, and was just curious of how could I plug in, is there anything I can do? This is a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and maybe there's a way I can help. And so I took note of a couple of the board members and called them and introduced myself, and I called the folks at Community Works and introduced myself and said, I like doing this, let me know if I can help. So fast forward to the fall, and the board, which is comprised of a representative from each of the municipalities and counties, and one at large, so there's 9 members. One's vacant, so there's 8 members. They asked if I would serve as an interim executive director and help get the organization on its feet, and at the same time see if we can start doing some things related to affordable housing. And so I said yes under a couple of conditions. One, it's part-time, and 2, am going back to Maine in May, where I still have a camp there. So I'm giving it my best between when I started in November and May when I leave. Have been focused on 3 or 4 major buckets of activity while here. One is to create our capacity, to get our organization together. We need to establish bank accounts. We need to have insurance and a relationship with insurance agency. We need to have an IT account. We need to have running water, an office. So I'm doing those things to get us up and running, sort of administrative in nature. The second thing that I am doing is helping this 8-person board, of which Wendy Zara is here. Wendy has served as chair, and Dixie is the board secretary. They and the 6 other members are only 8 people, and we're probably going to need more than that. And so we're working on expanding the board. A board doing the type of work we have should probably have a banker, or maybe a realtor, perhaps a commercial broker, a lawyer. Folks that are normally involved in affordable housing are not part of the represented in the 8 people we have. So trying to strengthen the governance of the organization, as well trying to go out and meet with each of the communities just like this, and sort of introduce myself, explain people what we're doing, what we're working on, and to do everything possible to kind of enhance that communication with the local governments. So that's the second thing. First thing was the administrative tasks. The second thing was the government relationships. The third thing, and perhaps most exciting, is creating some programs to do some things about affordable housing, because there's a whole lot of people that need it. And so we're starting to make good progress there. Our board had a retreat in December, and or November, I can't remember, November, I guess, and really came up with 3 primary groups that we feel we want to address. One are those that need affordable rental housing. That sort of jumps off the page at us as sort of the biggest need and area we can jump into. Second area we want to help is those that want to buy a home that are unable to. Either they might lack the down payment, the houses might be too expensive, there's a gap. So how can we help some homeowners? Third is home repairs. You don't have to drive too far around this county, and you see a lot of really substandard housing that needs some repair. So those are the 3 primary areas. And then a fourth area is just we would like to work with the county, schools, municipalities, whoever, to try to identify and to secure land that we then would make the connection and get some sort of development going on there, and to try to find that land that's available before it gets used for some alternate purpose, to help hopefully be able to identify some sites that we can create affordable housing on. So looking at these areas, what we're doing on the rental housing, for instance, is we currently have an RFP out. We're request for proposals. We're hoping developers will come forward, and we're going to do that in 3 rounds, a round now, a round in August, and another RFP round about a year from now. And we think that providing up to $400,000 to each applicant at about $10,000 per affordable rental housing unit, that we can create that combined with a project that we already invested to Carrington Manor in the city of Beaufort, that we can help about 489 people over this next 18-month period. Obviously, it's not going to be built by then, but we'll provide a layer of financing that will get it started, or might be the first layer, might be the last layer. But we think that we can create 489, contribute to the creation of 489 rental homes. On the home ownership side, there are organizations and others that provide some secure down payment assistance or closing cost assistance to help some of those first-time home buyers secure their first home. And so we think by working with other, primarily nonprofits, to do that, we can help 60 people get into that first home. Similarly, on the home repair, we would try to work with existing programs that are already out making those home repairs. We don't want to be duplicating what's already going on. We want to just be able to provide some extra money and make those programs go a little bit further. So, and then if we can get 100 affordable homes through the land, that collectively would be 709 affordable homes. That is kind of our target to contribute toward in the next 14 months. So that's a little bit. The last thing I want to mention to you is while I'm working part-time and we have another administrative person who's helping out half-time, the plan is that the organization will create a full-time, hire a full-time executive director by the time I leave in May. We're recruiting on that. Our search committee is meeting for the second time next week. We're starting to collect applications and resumes, and are confident we can have somebody on board by May 1st. And so that's a very important juncture. So we're making some progress. I think we know what our problem is. I think we know what we need to do. I oftentimes think that a healthy organization is going to be far more effective than an unhealthy organization. So we want our organization to be healthy. And I would further say that a healthy and strong board leads to a healthy and strong organization. And so we are focused on making sure the board has the capacity and the strength, as well as the staff having similar strengths to do this incredibly important work. Just before stopping, I couldn't help but notice number 1 on your could-do list over here, which, you know, I might argue it could be a must-do or a should-do, or I'm not quite sure the distinctions there, but it sure is important. And I think you all know that affordable housing is just a growing problem. I bet money if you put those up there 10 years ago, it probably wouldn't have been there. It's an emerging issue nationwide, and the needs are not that unique in this area from the rest of South Carolina or the rest of the country. The tourist nature here does add a dynamic that makes affordable housing problems tend to be worse than non-tourist areas. So I'll stop there. Happy to answer any questions.
So just really quick, thank you for being here.
Sure.
And being a part of this. Let me ask you really quick, are you, when it comes May and you say you're gone, are you gone, or you coming back, or?
Coming back. The
Okay.
idea is to spend, when it's hot here, to go up there,
gotcha.
when it's cold up there, to come here.
Okay.
And so they say your blood thins out as you get older, and I think that's true. So that's
That's a good plan. And to reiterate that it's not just a Beaufort County problem. We were just in Columbia at the Municipal Association of South Carolina, talking to municipalities and mayors and from all over the state, and you heard about this from a lot of them. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, so it's not just us. So, and I thank you to Dixie and Wendy for being on the board and taking up this really important issue. And I think maybe you're just the right guy at the right time, and you know it worked out like that. So, any questions from council? Questions? Now, well, then one last thing I will say, I'm glad to see that that home ownership element in there. I think that's very important too. That you know, it's rentals are very important, but ownership too, giving people, you know, the opportunity to, you know, kind of maybe create some economic mobile.
Well, it's asset building.
Yeah, exactly. So-
Yeah, and it's also good to see the land acquisition also, because at the Greenville did a project where they
Yes.
purchased a lot of property
Yes.
and they converted that into affordable housing.
And I think Beaufort County owns a lot of land, and so, I mean, there may be some opportunities. I will say the home ownership, while it seems so fundamental, the federal government, and there's no denying the fact that the federal government and then the state government do play lead roles in affordable housing, whether it's tax policy or actual investments. They are dominant, and there has never really been the focus or the resources going toward home ownership like there has been home repair or rental. So it's clear we want to do it, but it's a little bit harder because the resources are not as prevalent. But the other thing, one of the reasons it is important is every time you move somebody out of an apartment into that home, there's somebody that can backfill and go into that apartment. And so that movement within the housing market is what's so critically important.
I noticed municipalities have talked about creating or establishing some type of incentive to those developers that would designate a certain percentage of their projects for affordable housing. Has the Housing Trust considered something similar to attract more people that are interested in participating in that?
It's a key policy question. My understanding, and I clearly don't know the laws here as well as I should, but inclusionary zoning is not allowed under state statute here in South Carolina. I think there's a bill this session, there have been before. So a municipality cannot require
Right.
a developer or all developers to do that. So then the question is, how do you incent them? And that's really kind of what our rental housing program is trying to do. If somebody can say, okay, we'll put aside 30 units or 40 units or 20 units, we'll give you some money if they pledge to serve lower income people for a period of time and lowering the rent. That's what we're trying to do. But it really, the market is so hot around here, developers are going to say, I don't need to do that. I mean, I don't want to say they're callous and inhumane, but they've got a product that is selling, that's renting. You know, it takes a little bit to get their attention to kind of say, why don't you, out of the goodness of your heart, set aside 20% of that development for lower income people? You know, they're going to say, well, the numbers don't work, and there's some truth to that. So it's very, I think the market here is strong enough that if there was an inclusionary zoning requirement, it could work. But I think more importantly, you all have the opportunity of negotiating sometimes if somebody wants a TIF or a road widened or something from you or a zone change. You're kind of in the position to push back and say, yeah, how about we do that and you do this? I'm just throwing that out there, that those are the discussions that your colleagues are having in other communities around the country.
Sweet. Anyone else? You guys all right? Good. Well, thank you very much, Mr.
Great.
Falcon.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right. Up next, we have interviews for the Planning Commission. Just to reiterate to everybody, the town is now standing up its own standalone planning commission. There used to be a Metro Planning Commission that was in the city of Beaufort, Beaufort County, and Port Royal. That no longer exists, so the town is now standing up its own planning commission. It's going to be a 5-position board. We currently already have 2 members on it. They were on the Metro Planning Commission, Ms. Judy Ailing and Wendy Zera. So we're interviewing for some other spots. We've had a few people that can't make it tonight, but they've sent in resumes and letters to all of us as well, too. So I've got a list of the people that are here. We'll just kind of go through it. Let you kind of come up, say a few words, and then we'll just ask some questions. And up first, Charles Russo. How are you?
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
For having me.
Absolutely, yeah. Charles, just tell us, a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the planning commission.
Moved down to Port Royal area about 3 years ago, purchased the place about 5 years ago, fell in love with the community. Want to be part of keeping the community thriving. Have some extra time on my hands, and like I said, this would be my first time doing any kind of commission in local government. So there's my interest.
Okay, absolutely.
What are some skills that you could bring to the commission?
Skills that I can bring. I was for 25 years a superintendent, construction superintendent for a large commercial builder in New York, and I understand construction in New York and in the Low Country is slightly different. But one of my major feathers in my cap was a 1.5 mile long abandoned Port Authority property in Brooklyn, New York, that was turned into a mixed-use park / hotels. Awfully familiar to something we've got going on here. In addition to that, I was part of the World Trade Center rebuild and ferries, New York City parks and ferry terminals, doing a lot of construction on that kind of stuff. And one of my big responsibilities there was stormwater protection plan. I was an inspector for that for the state. So, and again, our location to the waters and how that can be sensitive with all the waterfront development. Again, just 25-plus years of doing different construction-type aspects within New York City. I think where I could be of some assistance.
Sure, absolutely.
What do you see the role of the planning commission being from your perspective?
Honestly, do not know. I was looking to find some of those answers out. What I can do, how I can help, and
Yeah.
I do a lot of volunteer work now. Right now, I'm figuring out. I came down with the intention ultimately to retire, but some injuries made that go a little faster. So I'm down here a couple of years earlier than expected. So I'm spent a lot of time volunteering at Help of Beaufort. I'm in the Coast Guard Auxiliary down here. Out in Ridgeland, I volunteer at OpFob, and tiny houses down in Savannah, which the last conversation got me thinking about some options that I see down in tiny houses that might be an option to our area.
Okay.
And you live here in Port Royal?
I live in Port Royal. I'm over in the River Club. I'm on the board at River Club.
Okay.
I'm on the outskirts of Port Royal proper.
It's Port Royal. It's all important, so. Any other questions for Mr. Russo?
I'm good.
Thank you for your interest, and I did
Yeah,
read your resume, and having that
Okay, thank you very
construction
much.
background.
And thank you for everything else that you do in the town as well, too, so. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Right, up next, we have Mr. Dannon James.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. How are y'all?
Good, how are you doing?
Good, good.
So, yeah, you just want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and why you want to be on the planning commission.
Okay, my name's Dannon James. I'm originally from Chester, South Carolina. I moved here with my soon-to-be wife. We got married in 2021, moved here in 2019. We have a 2-year-old daughter. Live at the corner of 16th Street and Richmond Avenue. As far as my current position, I'm a federal probation officer, so I deal with every aspect of federal law and all their rule breakers. I'm a graduate of the College of Charleston. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Sociology and Associates of Science in Criminal Justice from the University of South Carolina. I'm a graduate of the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy in Charleston, South Carolina, and a graduate of the South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. Here locally, I'm secretary of the Beaufort Masters Swim Team and currently a member of Leadership Beaufort, the class of 2024, so hopefully graduate in April or May. So a little bit about me.
The Chester Cyclone?
Yes.
Any questions for
So
Mr.
same
James?
questions would be asked.
I gotta ask you just kind of if you have a philosophy on if you're in a board, you're in a group, building consensus, working with people, handling disagreements?
So I have to do that quite frequently with defense attorneys and U.S. attorneys and federal judges. So I'm in rooms with them constantly, and we have to come to an agreement. So I'm very good at working with people in my role. I have to be completely unbiased. I bring facts to district judges, and my opinion pretty much stays out of it. I like that I deal in factual information. And like I said, I try to be completely unbiased and do the right thing and what's good for all involved.
Given your background, what sparked your interest in becoming a member of this board? This committee?
So I've been, but prior to being federal law enforcement, I was a county employee and a town employee of another municipality, and I grew up in Chester, South Carolina. I don't know if you know anything about Chester, South
I know a
Carolina,
lot of
but
people in Chester.
it's ripe with corruption, and I grew up there, and I saw that growing up. And on the flip side, I was a police officer for the town of Fort Mill, so I saw the good of what money and annexation and development came, but I also saw the downside to that with the town of Fort Mill. I remember when I was a patrol deputy, the town of Fort Mill built the Fort Mill bypass, and they only made it a 2-lane highway. Well, it got so busy that we couldn't even run traffic. We had to sit on the side of the road for 2 hours because it's a parking lot. So I think with that background, I can help plan for the future here and know that growth is good, but it needs to be done the right way.
Thank you.
That's a good answer.
All right. Any other questions for Mr. James? All right. Thank you
All right,
very
thank
much. Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you for offering to serve.
Okay. Up next, Mr. Ryan Green. How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
Good,
Good afternoon,
good.
everyone.
Absolutely.
My name is Ron Green. I was born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. As you can tell, I went to Carolina. Yes, I played, got tired of it, focused on my degree, got a bachelor's in sociology. Then I went to College of Charleston, got a master's in public administration. Then I went to Pinal County, Arizona. I was a planner there for 2 years. Came back in September. Now I'm planning for the city of Beaufort. I bring direct planning experience. I've actually worked with Noah already. I like his mindset. I've negotiated with developers for the past 2 years. I've been a manager of minor land divisions. I've done subdivisions. I've done site plans. I know how to figure out what's best for a community. I know what breaks the bank to a developer, and I can find that sweet point to make it good enough to where we can all smile at a project.
Okay, great. So you currently work with the city of Beaufort?
Correct.
All right, cool, good job. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Green? No, well, I got kind of similar question to Mr. James when, kind of working on boards, working with other people, and you got to build a consensus, and you kind of have a philosophy and a way you approach those situations when you're working with other people like that?
Yes. I try to find their pain points, see if we can both address it collectively. I try to focus on the overall goal because just like everybody, we all get bogged down in our ideas and say, well, if I can't have this, it's not good. But if you see the bigger picture and bend a little to not break but get a lot, I think we can all find ideas that we all can smile at.
Oh, great.
Would it be a conflict at all for you working with the city of Beaufort?
From what I understand, no, and my director has given me verbal approval.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Green?
I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Thank
Thank you,
you,
sir,
Mr.
very
Martin.
much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Have a
sir.
good night.
Thank you, sir,
Thank you.
absolutely.
So how many positions are we, run that by me again?
3.
3.
3?
Yes, sir.
And
We've got
how
3
many
open
applicants?
seats.
10.
We have 7, I think, don't we, Ben?
7 positions.
Someone who dropped out.
Yes, we got 4 here and then 3 people that couldn't be here tonight. And like I said, they've sent letters and resumes in and stuff like that too, so. Yeah. Up next, Mr. Jeremy Taylor.
Hello. I'm Jeremy Taylor. Originally from North Carolina. I spent the first 22 years there and the last 22 right here. So I've been selling real estate here for 20 plus years, like specifically in the town of Port Royal. I started my company in that red caboose up the street about almost 15 years ago. Branched off to the Gulf Gas Station, and now I've been over here on Paris Avenue, and I don't want to sound corny or cliche, but, you know, I care about my town. I care about the people in this town.
Well, we love your cupcakes.
I'm not in the Red Caboose anymore, but.
I know where you are. My grandson knows.
Okay, sorry. I've worked for some of the biggest developers in the country. I've consulted for them. I have developers in my family that are very successful. I know how they work, you know, so, I don't know. Questions do y'all have for me? I'm an open book
Yeah. Any questions from Mr.
and not good with public speaking.
Tell me some skills that you'll bring to the table in this position.
I guess history's an indication. I don't know. I'm the guy that you call when you want it fixed or to understand it better. Like when Celadon was experiencing a lot of issues, not doing the sales that they want, they call me. I go in and increase their sales by sometimes 200-300%. Kalawasi Island, I've had that partnership there for the last 12 years. And every big company out there goes after the RFP every 2 years, but we still win because it's performance. You know, like I'm not the biggest, I don't want to be the biggest, but we do strive to be one of the best. And again, if history's an indication, like we do similar volume of large companies, but with much less, like less people.
What boards or commissions have you served on?
I'm the treasurer for our board, our MLS board. I'm trying to think. I mean, I've done stuff at the YMCA. I really have to think about that one, actually.
Well, if everybody's okay, thank you very much, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jim.
And just to fill everybody in, so tonight we'll discuss all this again. This is great to see. It's kind of a good problem. We still have boards and commissions that are not fully full right now. So it's good to see. I think, what do we get? 9 applicants, 8, something like that, to fill 3 spots. So just to everyone, if for some reason, you don't get on this board, we would just ask, please, look at the other boards and also keep an eye on this, because how long are the terms? 2 years, 3 years? 3-year terms?
Our two current commissioners, their terms are not too far off.
So when I say that, to say that there will be.
There will be openings.
Yes, there will be openings. So if for some reason you don't get on it right now, like I said, we've got other boards and positions that have current openings, and appreciate all of y'all's, willingness to serve the town. These are really important boards and commissions that we rely on as the town and work together with. So thank you all very much. All right, so next, moving along, we have got a council briefing.
All right. Let's go through some of the capital projects. Royal Palms Gravity Sewer Project, I was just talking to Brooke, they did have most of the closeout done today with that, which, the reason why that's important, it then makes us eligible for an additional funding cycle, because you can only have a certain number of projects open, if you will, for CDBGs, and that was obviously one of these. One of the things that we're reconciling on this project is the available capacity that we will get as a part of the expansion project. Obviously, we bank those capacity credits and could be used for something like affordable housing, attainable housing, whatever word you want to use, to help soften the burden of that. Dawson Place Drainage, that project is also complete. I think there's some fine tuning that we were going to do, but when we had the contractor back in town for a couple of the other small projects, we're going to have them address that flume. Speed humps, we are doing some additional speed testing and accumulation of data, if you will, to appease the requests of the DOT. As I mentioned previously, we did request the information or the studies that Charleston performed in order to put the speed humps all over Charleston, both in James Island, West Ashley, and everywhere in between. They did not provide us with that information. I have made a request through Representative Erickson that maybe she can expedite that so we can get a feeling for what it is that they were able to do to get them installed everywhere. Shadow Moss Trail, the TAPS, the second phase, obviously we're working on the northern easement at this point, and obviously that'll kind of fall into place once we get there. We contemplated becoming kind of a local, it's called LPA, but basically what it would mean is that we could manage our own projects because we don't have an engineer on staff. We retain it through through a contractual basis. And that's a very involved process, so we're probably still going to partner with DOT on that. West Paris Avenue, 60% design is completed. Looking at West Paris and Paris Avenue be updated to match as much as possible where we are with the streetscape plan, which we will present to you guys a little bit later in March and April. Villages also, surveys pretty much done there. The drainage analysis will begin, and we're talking about, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th Street, those areas. Looking for targeted bidding. The targeted bidding for West Paris is in February, but we'll start pulling together the plan for addressing the villages. Paris Avenue streetscape, that is what I just mentioned. We will have review meetings in March and then do the presentation to y'all in April. 12th Street school parking, the school district operations committee and board has approved to design an easement. So we've sent them the easement documents, and hopefully we'll finalize those shortly. Other side of 12th Street, are we at a layout approval there yet, or are we still working with the?
We're just waiting to hear back from the board.
Okay, all right, so we're going to meet with the board of that organization and finalize the layout and design.
What about the school district on the other side?
That's, I just mentioned that.
I must have been a lot on that.
Yeah.
'Cause I see how they park every morning out there.
No, their board has approved it.
Okay.
And we've sent them over the easement documents.
Okay.
That's all right. That we have Casablanca filed drainage improvements. We're going to discuss that a little bit later in the meeting. So we'll talk about that at that point. We are issued or put out the RFQ for engineering for the CIP master plan application for stormwater. So that was also one of those grants that we received. Paris Avenue streetscape, just additionally, as I mentioned last month, and I just want to reiterate that we did receive another $750,000 towards that project, so pretty excited. Sanitary sewer, Rebo Road master plan, not much new on that. I will say that Beaufort Jasper has asked for us to come up with our kind of a capital project list, a wish list, if you will. What we had submitted previously was addressing sewer along Rebo Road. As all of you know, it's only sewered in a few sections, and obviously if we're looking at as our primary commercial corridor, we need to ensure that we have sewer where it's needed. So that will continue to be kind of that primary driver. The second is addressing the holes that we have in our sewer system in the downtown area. I mean, we have several spots that still do not have sewer. 15th Street heading towards Edinburgh is one of those areas. So we still have some gaps. Old Shell Road, there's a gap there as well. So there's a few where I think are priorities. If you recall, 10, 15 years ago, we did an analysis of the septic systems, and obviously we've made getting sewer installed a priority. So that's why we pursued so many community development block grants to address sewer. We are meeting tomorrow to discuss the status of the roadway paving contract. That's at 9 o'clock. And hopefully we can firm up the dates. They had some concerns about some of the scoping relative to measuring and laying out. That was in their scope of work, and we will remind them tomorrow. So hopefully we will get a better date on when they intend to start. Safe Harbor, I gave you all a little bit of an overview of the meeting that was held, and the mayor's kind of discussed that with the newspapers. So we're still working on several issues associated with that meeting, in particular the easement for the Spanish Moss Trail as it crosses Rebo Road and traverses what we call the Rebo Village. I think we've got to work out the kinks on that. And we intend to give it first reading next week, so hopefully we'll be able to resolve that in the next few days.
And they should have some representative here next week. At the meeting's what we were told,
That's the
Yes.
plan.
right? We were told that. We'll have somebody, okay.
Shrimp dock, we've authorized ATM Engineering to begin the process of working on the schematics, layout, and permitting for the reconstruction of the dock. They will present to council their preliminary layouts for y'all to review and approve. If you remember, we have two separate $1 million budget designations from the state for the reconstruction of the dock, as well as the processing facility, and we have $600,000 still from the insurance proceeds from a long time ago. Y'all had the opportunity to meet with our representatives, and they did suggest that if we are looking for additional assistance, that we may consider that as they work through their own budgets this year. Capital projects, the updated list, I believe, is in your folders. Soloco, new officers were elected. Mayor Harry Williams of Hardyville was the chair. Hilton Head Mayor was elected vice chair. Obviously, Lisa Salko didn't seek re-election. She was on that board and was the chair. These agendas are for the upcoming year, really focused on growth and infrastructure. Where, how much, how we work together with Beaufort, Jasper counties. And obviously, we've had a number of presentations, obviously, on housing being one of those, as well as the upcoming potential referendum. This kind of segues into the next one. Just wanted to make you all aware that there was an amendment to the plan that was submitted by the group to county council, and then it passed on 8-3 vote that they would amend the way the projects would be managed and approved. The county council is seizing the authority to handle the dollars and the designation of projects, and they've also decided that the administrator, the county administrator, would develop the priorities based upon those lists. I know it's an interim position right now, and while I do really like John Robinson, considering our previous history with the county, I'm a little concerned about the way that's written. Hopefully they will address that again. I know that I have circulated the letter from the city of Beaufort. They sent the county council regarding that amendment, and I assume we'll probably share the same position.
Well, and just to speak on that really quick, the thing that is concerning to me about it is we passed a resolution based on our recommendations and what we know, and then you submit a resolution supporting something, and then amendments are added to it that change it. And you know, after we've said we support this, now things are being added to it that we think need to be talked about before, you know, so there's a little bit of concern there, but hopefully the county's still got to give it 2 more readings. It's past the first reading, so hopefully they can be worked out, and we've been in conversation with county council members about our concerns about that as well, too, so.
All right. And legal, nothing really new to the point this time. We'll get cranked back up with some of the pending things that we have, and so nothing road there. We did cover road resurfacing. I had it drawn out separately. It is obviously a pretty big issue to us. They're still within the contracted time frame that they can get this work done. Obviously, really would have liked to have seen more work done, or at least it started. We were hoping to have it started in November. I know they've had some internal reorganization, which has been somewhat of a problem for us, so we shall see.
And they're confident they can still get it done, and
Yes.
in the timeframe? Okay.
Yes, they are. All right, and then the next item is entryway signs, just real quickly. Obviously, some of the ones that we have right now are pretty tired, and this was a rendering that was put together by Spectrum, to give you an idea of what we could expect in terms of replacing. I want you guys to take a look at those if you have concerns. Don't like the colors, don't like the size, that's something we can talk about. So take a look at those, and we may vote on those next week if we need to. So. Now, some of them will be, depending upon the location, like the one that's coming across before you come across the Liaison Bridge, it may be a little bit larger.
Okay.
The one that's at Waters Dry Cleaning is probably not going to be as large, just because it's about scale. But the materials we're trying to use here will be a little bit sturdier or resilient, considering the elements. So.
And these would go where? There's one, I know you're talking about, right at the dry cleaners, and then the
Savannah Highway.
Savannah Highway, the Parkers right there.
Yeah, and then the ladies' bridge before you come
Liaison
across
Bridge,
Lane
okay.
Bridge. I know Noah likes the old signs, but
I mean, I think
he's threatening to make T-shirts. With
one
them.
thing missing, just one thing missing, my face.
Okay. We'll put a bobblehead on top of there. How about that? Next, police department. We've been pretty fortunate recently. We've got some new hires that are coming on board. We'll introduce those folks once it becomes official. But I think Massey brings me a new file folder just about every few days of folks. And I think 1 or 2 of them are already certified, Chief. Is that correct? 2. So that means that they pretty much can hit the ground running. They may need to do some updates at the academy, but not much. So we're pretty pleased about that.
So if they're certified, they have to go through the academy, or they don't?
One's from Texas, so.
Okay.
The academy wants to require,
Gotcha.
usually 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, great.
The other one, he doesn't have to go.
Okay, great.
Did we get them through regular recruiting practices, or did they seek us out? Do you know, Chief?
I am not even sure.
Just curious, you know, with how our recruiting is and just to see what our best practices are there to try to capitalize on them, because they're easy, they're research.
One's a active duty Marine, and
Right.
he reached out to us on a Zoom. He was out on the 28th of February. So
Awesome,
hopefully pick him up.
wonderful, that's
Great.
great news.
And then the last item I wanted to really discuss was the ad hoc park committee. I think it's time to get those folks engaged with Sands Beach Road. The park is, I think, really important, in particular because we are contemplating some small adjustments to the land swap ordinance that would pick up some additional pieces. I think we have a real opportunity to enhance the Sands Beach area beyond just the park itself, but maybe with some additional boardwalking to make it a really true experience. And listening to some of the interviewees, I think if they aren't appointed to the planning commission, I think we've got some talent that might be able to work with this ad hoc committee.
You want to start, I guess, just start advertising that?
We can, for
How
sure.
many people do we want on?
Yeah, I think it's
How many
time to do
people?
that.
Yeah.
And then one last thing that I hand wrote in, I got an email from Megan Groves with DOT today. She's been my primary contact about the sidewalk adjacent to the Naval Hospital fence. We did find out the new point of contact is Laurel Roten. You all may know her. She used to be on our Parks and Recreation Commission.
Yeah.
She's local, so we're very excited about that. She's kind of jumped into this. She understands the history, and so we feel like we've got maybe some traction. That's awesome. But keep your fingers crossed.
Toes as well.
Toes too.
That's all I've got, but I'll answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Van? Okay, up next, we got the review the agenda for next week's Valentine's Day council meeting.
Yeah. So. Well, this is. All right, good. All right, first readings, Spanish Moss easement, as I mentioned, we're still fine tuning that document. Lawrence is drafting it, and we'll make that available as quickly as we can. You know, most of the boilerplate language is in place, but right now we're really discussing the width of the easement through the property. For the last month, it's been a specific or a certain width that accommodated the trail as well as the area we needed. Obviously, we wanted to make sure that they understood that we know that it is temporary but needs to be relocated. It can. They came back with a much less than ideal width for the easement, and it's just not workable. So we'll discuss that a little bit later.
So, yeah, I mean, so just to, I mean, they're committed to the easement and committed to the
Yes.
trail. It's just now it's these details about
Right.
that we're going back and forth with. so.
Right, exactly. All right, resolutions, 2-2024, resolution of commitment of funds for Paris Avenue thoroughfare improvements. Obviously, we need to formalize our commitment via the match dollars for that CDBG. So we're looking at about $323,000 that you will need to endorse, leverage against the $700,000 plus we're getting in exchange for that. All right. Resolution 3, 2024 resolution authorizing the town manager to execute any and all necessary documents for the purchase of real property for access from the former Seaboard Coastline Railroad, now known as the Spanish Moss Trail, providing access to same across Appleton Road to Ritter Circle in the town of Port Royal, South Carolina. In order to make this truly function and tied in where it comes in, Ritter Circle, Appleton, there's a small triangle that's owned by a couple of families adjacent to that for the grand total of $3,000. We've been able to secure that, and it'll make it much more functional as it comes off of Appleton and Ritter Circle. Now, this obviously is the terminus until we can resolve the other easement issue as it would cross what we refer to as the Bluff neighborhood and ties into where we built part of the trail already at Fish Camp. So,
And just so everyone knows, when we mention that, when we say the pinch point, that's if you look at the PUD for the Port Royal development, that Rebo Village is basically a triangle, and then it comes down and makes another triangle. And that pinch point is where we're trying to get it to, right there where the Rebo Village connects to the Bluff Village sections. So, just so everyone's clear about the language.
and the next is Resolution 4, 2024, resolution encouraging the County of Beaufort to name the library facility on Paris Avenue after former Mayor Samuel E. Murray. I believe it was Councilman Owens that first thought about this and kind of put this in motion, so I was able to draft a resolution for y'all to consider that if we endorse it, we can pass along to the library board and the and county council for consideration.
Yeah, I just think Councilman Owens on that, he called me about this, I said, I think that's a great idea. You know, he's known Sam Murray's whole life, was mayor for 22 years, on council for 16 before that, or?
A long time.
And then it was an educator his whole life, so Councilman Owens called me up and said, what do you think about naming the library that we're getting on Paris Avenue, or right on the corner of Paris Avenue, after the former mayor, and that's just something I think that's really great, and, you know, he's looking down smiling about that, so thank you for getting the ball rolling on that.
It's a great job.
All right, appointments, this is under council action. Town will be selecting, as you mentioned, we'll have 5 individuals serving on the newly constituted planning commission. And you've started the interview process, so we'll formally adopt those members hopefully next week. Next is a memorandum of agreement. I may have Noah put a little flesh on this, but obviously this is a grant that we received, but we're working with Coastal Carolina University. It kind of is the conduit for the administrative piece of it, and you maybe want to discuss what the grant's about.
Yeah, so the grant was awarded by the South Carolina Department of VA. There are 3 agencies or organizations that are subawardees for the grant. Basically, the town is the conduit, as Van said, and Paris Island is also involved, helping me be the conduit, basically. The money is being put towards a living shoreline project for Paris Island. Part of it was recommended in the military installation review that was done by LCOG recently. And so the 3 groups are SCDNR, Coastal Carolina University, and a private organization called Global Eco Adventures. And so they're working with the other 2 groups for the smart reef and some very scientific things that I don't fully understand. I've been assured that I'll be taken out on a boat at some point and have an explanation of what exactly is going on there. So there will be 3 MOUs grouped together for this, basically for each subawardee to have their funds dispersed by the town.
Great.
Just a good example of us partnering with Paris Island.
Yeah, absolutely, so.
Yeah, they reached out and had about a week to get their proposal in, and so we said sure, and we'll get the details in place
Yep.
once we have the money.
We love Paris Island being there. We actually had a meeting with some of Representative Nancy Mace's chief of staff, and Representative came in town. They asked anything we can do for you. We said, don't ever let anything happen to Paris Island is one of them, so.
And we will have a representative. I'm not sure from which group, but somebody will be here next week if you would like a little bit more of a
Okay.
Educated explanation of what they're doing.
Great.
Absolutely.
All right, and the last council action item is the Casablanca File drainage analysis proposal. Obviously, we've got some drainage issues in the Casablanca area, and this is one of the basins that needs significant work. And Four Waters has put together a scope of work for y'all to approve, $20,975 to complete that. This will get it shovel-ready.
Cool.
We intend to fund this project to get it moving. We had initially broke it up into kind of 2 different project areas, but obviously we'll keep submitting it for whatever grants we come across, but we think it's important to keep it moving forward. So this will tee it up and have it as shovel-ready as it can be.
Okay, great.
Important dates. Obviously, we're meeting next Wednesday.
Valentine's Day, so wear your red.
Valentine's Day. All right, it's very exciting. I'm sure everybody's happy about that. Saturday, February 17th is the Port Royal Mardi Gras. Brooke, you want to say anything about that?
It's coming along great. We have the Paris Island brass band that will be performing at Shell Ring.
Yeah.
We have Battery Creek jazz band that will be marching in the parade, as well as their homecoming king and queen. I think we have a bunch of, I know it's over 8 golf carts right now, 2 floats, walkers, bicycles, you name it, we've got it coming. So we're excited. It's going to be, it's something different, and,
Yeah, I hope it's something we can keep going. It's
Yeah.
great. So, yeah. And it'll be at 4 o'clock.
So it'd be early.
And if you've never heard the Battery Creek High School Band, you're gonna be impressed.
Yeah, you know.
They're really good. Really good. Monday, February 19th, the office will be closed in recognition of President's Day. Tuesday, February 20th, the redevelopment commission meeting will meet at 4:30. We always put down the bill end at 5:30. They never did. Friday the 23rd, we have our council retreat starting at 8:30 a.m. And then Monday, March 4th, we have our accommodation tax committee meeting, our first one, at 5:30 p.m. And that's what I've got.
And just something, another date as well, too, to keep on your agenda. I don't know if, this is a pretty engaged group, so I'm sure you remember last year, we were talking about, after we'd received a letter from AMVETS in town about bringing recognition to the fact that 22 veterans a day are committing suicide across this country. And so we've decided to have the miles per hour sign down Paris Avenue changed to 22 miles per hour to recognize that. We've teed that up to be on the 23rd, on that Friday. We're going to do it at 12 o'clock, do an unveiling of those. If you know, that's when the Lieutenant Dan Band's in town playing out of the air station, so we were trying to coordinate with that. It's going to be just a big day of military awareness in Beaufort County, and of course in Port Royal, military, active duty, and veterans are really important to us. So we'll be doing retreat, and then during retreat for our lunch break, we're going to walk over, have a quick little ceremony, unveil those signs. And so if you're around on that Friday around 12 o'clock, come over to Paris Avenue. We'll get some more information out about that as well. But we do have the signs, and now we're just kind of coordinating with getting some speakers and how to make it happen. So, but just to keep that on your calendar as well, too, 12 o'clock on the 23rd. So, anything else for Van? Any questions? Anything? Okay. All right. Back to the nights. We've got on our agenda tonight important dates. We already talked about that. Council next week on Valentine's Day, the 14th. Now we've got public comment. We've got a stack right here in no particular order. Mr. Pete Cotter, come on down. Hey, good evening, Pete. Yes, sir.
As president of Historic Port Royal Foundation, I have the pleasure and I would like to introduce you to Jeffrey Gillian. He's just come aboard on our board as our new treasurer. So just like you to see a face and know a name. So if you have any questions at all.
Yeah, Jeff, just tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, I am pretty recent to town, live here in town of Port Royal. Came from Columbia, not too far away. Graduated from USC, hotel, restaurant, tourism management. Yeah, excited to be here, love the area, excited to be a part of the community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
stepping up and joining and getting involved. That's
Glad
great.
to be.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Thank
thanks.
you. Well, nice to meet you, Mr.
Yep.
Gillian.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Up next, I've got Mrs. Pamela Courtney.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, yeah. Yeah.
For little people. Here, I'm gonna pass these down so you put one here.
I thought you had some cookies.
Next time. So, First thing that say the medals are in for the Rebo Run, so I want you to see them. They're engraved on the back. We've got all different types of categories for them. I think they came out really nice. They look so professional, and I think whoever wins these is going to be so proud of what it is. But there's going to be other categories as well for this. I think that we ought to also not just be serious about running, but there ought to be the first dog on a leash that crosses the finish line. If Jorge comes in with a contingent of Marines, I think that they ought to have maybe a competition with other military, allow that to happen.
Don't love that.
And maybe a Jean Ribot look-alike contest. Whoever's running that can look like Jean Ribot, I think you would look like that. We put a beard on you, you'd be really good. Yeah, so that's kind of up to date. We are, coming in on it, and our youngest runner, it looks like it's signed up as 9, and our oldest runner at this point is 78. female. And so we're getting a wide variety of runners coming in. And I think our furthest away is from the state of Maine coming in. So this will be a good deal. In April, retired Captain Nick Richards is coming into town, and he's going to do part of the lecture series. He was the first captain of the USS Port Royal. So he is coming in also for the unveiling of the Port Royal USS Port Royal exhibit as well as lecture series. And now he's so excited about this that he has contacted the plank owners of the USS Port Royal, and those are the original sailors that came in, and they've all gotten really, so they've got this kindred bond with our Port Royal, and they want to see Port Royal, and they kind of want to come in and be a part of it. We also have a previous captain that was in here this last week of the Port Royal, and he liked it so much, he's thinking about moving here. So I mean, they just kind of feel this, feel this, you know, heartstrings here. The Sam Murray Educational Scholarship Fund, the monies have been raised for that. Charlotte has been very involved in the wording and the description for the student. It is for a student who goes on majoring in education at USCB. You know, that was like that, and it's going to a Beaufort County senior. So that is now starting to go, you know, the applications are going to go out. So this will be an important.
Yeah, the timer, gotcha, yeah.
Okay.
You just wrap it, you got one more to talk
Yeah,
about.
okay. Stephen Millette Park, Safe Harbor has taken down the trash trees behind it, so it's looking better today. And so we're moving along with that. I'll let you know. And then also, we do have advisors that come on board for advising. And Sam Tannenbaum, I don't know if you know Sam, but he has agreed to come on for financial advising. You may know his wife Inez, who was the Department of Education, ran for governor. So Sam is a real gift. He's originally from Savannah.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And yeah, just to, really, with the run coming up, we're almost a month away. So.
Runsignup.com.
Yep. So if everybody just wants to help promote that, and we can,
volunteer.
because it's not just a run, it's a birthday party.
That
So
is it.
150-year-old birthday party. So we're gonna make that a really good time. And that Sam Murray scholarship, just make sure once you do have that applicant decided on, that we bring them in here and really, you know, celebrate them and Sam Murray's legacy as well too. So.
And we're gonna all run. They're gonna run.
I don't know about
we're gonna walk
run.
behind them to make sure they make it to the finish
I'll
line.
be
I'm gonna walk behind them.
Yeah.
I'm only going, you said I had to if I
Yeah.
wanted to go to the party.
Come on, that's right, that's what we were told.
Run, yeah.
But I will be walking to the
Walking, there
back,
we go.
I tell you, I'll stroll the baby,
There you go.
whatever I need to do.
Ride my bicycle.
But I'll be in it.
All right. So up next, we have Mr. Charlie Bray. Hey, Charlie.
Good evening, Council. Charlie Bray, 806 11th Street, Port Royal. I'm going to read you the first part of this. At some point in the near future, I would like to see a serious revisit of the short-term rental issue. Elections are over and the hard work has already been done by the task force. Why not address this before we lose the friendly, know-your-neighbor sense of community that attracted so many of us to move here? While I agree that there is a place for short-term rentals in Port Royal, I think we lose more than we gain every time one is added. There is certainly no reason why the large majority of these rentals has to be in the village. Council retreat is coming up, and long-term rentals are to be discussed. Don't ignore the short-term rentals. There are probably a few sections in the draft ordinance, and that draft ordinance is available on the Port Royal website, that owners might find onerous and might be eliminated, just like some of the issues with the long-term rentals. The short-term task force was an honest and serious effort to deal with STRs. Council asked its citizens to meet and draft an ordinance, which they did. The fact that it was never brought up to a vote, I think, is a slap in the face, and probably why many of those folks who were on that task force have disappeared from the volunteer positions in the town. As the rest of the surrounding municipalities enact or have enacted short-term rental limitations, the problem for Port Royal only gets more acute. We were already behind on this. For once, it would Be great to see Port Royal lead and not react. You have the ability and the responsibility to help shape our future. Now, that is an email I sent to everybody. I thank you for at least acknowledging that you got the email.
I think I told you, thank you for it.
Okay,
Better go back and look.
couple of final thoughts. My research is not exhaustive. I just looked into a little of this. I do believe we're the only municipality around here without a cap. So what does that do? It drives the short-term rentals here. Beaufort's at 6%, Mount Pleasant's at 1%. Our draft specified 8%. The town was divided into districts. District 1, which is basically the right side of Paris Avenue up to 16th Street, at that time, 4 years ago, was at 9%. I guarantee it's well over that now. I would love to see the staff come up with a updated district map showing the short-term rentals as we have them now and where they are in the districts. Trying to get Safe Harbor to cut down on all the rentals on the bluff, I think that's a noble enterprise, but may not be fruitful. This issue is within your control, and so I'd like to see you maybe address it and look at it at your retreat. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, yes, sir.
Timely.
All right. Up next, Ms. Tricia Fidger.
Good evening. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Before I go into my prepared comments, I just have to note how incredibly special Port Royal is. Sitting in the audience right now and listening to all the people that are willing to volunteer, and then hearing their backgrounds and what they can bring to this town. And then I look and I see all the people that have volunteered for years in this town. And I just couldn't let that go unnoticed, that this is incredibly amazing and what makes this town so special, because you guys, Van, your entire staff, make people want to. You don't do the Heisman, like, back away. You don't tell them. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So, all right, here are my prepared comments. Tricia Fedridge, 1016 12th Street. Good evening. There are basically three things I'd like to bring up this evening. I appreciate the report on the meeting with Safe Harbor on February 1st, but honestly, I was hoping for more details. I think the whole town might be hoping for more details. We're eager to hear what's going on. It's a big new year, 2024, new council. I was hoping that we'd hear tonight a report that had just a little bit more of what was going on. As you know, one of the major areas of concern is the plan for the bluff. And I sincerely hope you continue to push hard on Safe Harbor to find a better vision and a better reality for that property. Additionally, a public presentation by Safe Harbor with a timeline, a master plan, would go a long way in the public's understanding of the work that's being done on the property. My second issue is I'd like to reiterate my concern about the pedestrian safety and parking on 12th Street. Now, Van, I know you noted both sides of 12th Street and that you're going to meet with the board of the entity that's on 12th Street. But it is truly hazardous to walk down 12th Street. All right, I know I could take 13th, I could take 11. 11's pretty hazardous too, but there's a nice sidewalk. Vegetation hangs out onto the street, creating a blind corner as you turn right off Paris. Cars are parked everywhere, making it difficult to walk safely. And I really do hope that this sidewalk will alleviate some of that concern. And lastly, I agree with Charlie. I urge Town Council to consider your position on short-term rentals. Several years ago, a group of citizens delved into the pros and cons of short-term rentals. And as I recall, they presented their findings and Council took no action. Well, taking no action is in effect taking a position. With the development of the bluff, the development of the Deloach property, and look around, other development that's going on, I think it might be judicious for council to get in front of this issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that's it for public comments. Yep, Ms. Wendy Zara.
Hi.
Good evening, Wendy Zara. I live on 14th Street. I was on that task force for the short-term rentals. And at the time, many of us thought the 8% cap was too high. It was higher than Beaufort's and others. But there are a couple of other reasons to consider taking action on this. One is that it's been demonstrated that short-term rentals eat into the availability of affordable housing. So we have an affordable housing challenge, we know that, and this isn't helping at all. Secondly, these are essentially mini hotels, and they don't have any of the safety standards that if you were to go to a real B&B or an actual hotel, those properties have to have everything from monitored fire alarms to plans to how to get out of there to how many people can be in a room. This ordinance covered a lot of that. And we don't need a fire in one of these short-term rentals where people are hurt. And even if you had the safety things, you couldn't guarantee that wouldn't happen. But I think it's the town's responsibility to make sure that the conditions are safe. So that would be another reason it would be included in a short-term rental ordinance. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, all right. Up next, we're going to go into executive session. Do I have a motion? And for everyone to know, one of the reasons we're going into is discuss legal matters about the port, mainly the safe harbor easement, and finalizing those documents. So hopefully we can get that voted on and going. And next, we've got some personnel issues to discuss as well too. So those are the two topics for our executive session. So entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion to go into executive session.
Get a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Say aye. All right. We'll go into executive session. Thank you all for being here.
Thank y'all.
If we don't see you afterwards, we'll see you on Valentine's. Thank you all. We're back from executive session. No action will be taken. Do not need a motion to adjourn. It's a workshop. So we'll see you all next week. February 14th is our next meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you.